Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Trade the Chain AMA. Thank you all for joining. It's been a long week, and I know that a lot of people want to hear a couple different updates, so that's why we're bringing this to you. I'm joined with our research analyst, Nick Mancini, and Chief Community Officer. Couple things, just want to let everybody know in the beginning that one, there's two ways to chat live. There's the chat box located at the bottom of your Zoom, as well as a Q&A, which is off to the side there. So please feel free to either ask questions, chat in either of those at any time during this. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I'll tell you what, 2 weeks of travel takes it out of you. And I came home to Denver's first snow as well. So we got a couple inches while I slept overnight. So that was interesting to go from what 75, 80 in Puerto Rico to 30 degrees in Denver. But you know what, more time for the charts, so less distractions. So I'm cool with it.
A lot of travel, a lot of things happening in the crypto world the last couple of weeks. We've all been doing our thing and meeting the teams and going over the markets. But Art Basel, which was the week before last or last week in Miami, really, it transformed from what is typically known as a high-profile art event to having a crypto infusion into it this year. And I'll tell you, crypto takes over every conference or every celebratory week that it enters, it feels like, over the years. So Nick's going to give you the rundown on that, as well as this week, we've had Puerto Rico Blockchain Week. Today, wrapping up the last day, I believe the Limitless Conference over at the Vanderbilt in San Juan is happening as we speak right now, but have gotten to meet a lot of fantastic people from a lot of the protocols and discuss what the future looks like for crypto, as well as we went through a bunch of educating people with Trade the Chain and the Cent Galaxy, and got a lot of people really interested in that as well. And then, of course, we get hit with the worst inflation number increase in, I believe it's 39 years, Nick?
Yep. What was it? 6.8%. And I think expectations were 6.7 or hoping for 6.7. So even though it's a miss, or even though it's a small miss, it's a miss, and the market does not like misses.
It does not like misses at all, and the impact is being felt along the crypto markets right now as we speak. I'm sure if you guys are looking at your portfolio, there's a little upsetness in everyone's mind, but I'm going to let Nick dive into the markets a little more and show what's happening right now on the screen.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alex. And you right now, what you're seeing is sentiment as well as 1 hour all the way up to 30-day changes. There's not a whole lot of green on the board. If anyone was fortunate enough to watch my CoinDesk interview that happened, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, what I discussed was the sentiment was getting better. And if you look at Bitcoin, when I was talking, we saw those green humps happen. The caveats to continued bullish price action were A, volume, and B, sentiment. As you can see, trading volume has plummeted from what we discussed earlier. I think it was minus 5% a few days ago. Clearly, it's minus 13.5%. Sentiment is also down in the 30s number. Ethereum looks a lot better. Trading volume is plus 35%. Sentiment is clearly not as low as Bitcoin, and positive sentiment was much more positive than Bitcoin before. And I think that's why Ethereum is showing a little bit more strength than Bitcoin is right now. But going back to what I said before and kind of bringing it to a head here, we needed increased sentiment. We needed increased volume to continue forward. We did not get both of those numbers for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then coupled with a miss, quote unquote, of inflation numbers, people are basically a lot more scared than expected. And this is an interesting phenomenon that I think it's tough to grasp, and it's never 100% correct. But if you follow institutional traders enough, whenever numbers like that come in and then the first trade happens, there's a general saying in the market that the first trade is always wrong. Now, it's not 100%, but as you can see, when those numbers came in around 8 a.m., 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Bitcoin and Ethereum had a nice little pump. They had a nice little hourly boost. Quickly, very quickly, short after that, they all, lost their gains and are near levels that we were seeing before we were aware of the inflation number. So it's quite interesting to see the volatility on the heels of that. Clearly, the first traders were bullish as to what those numbers meant for crypto. As the market digested the news, they realized they were not. But I do feel that whenever we see a volatile move in one direction, generally that direction ends up following suit later on. This is not 100%, but if the bulls were out very early and the smart money was battling it back to maybe get a better price action, scare retail, whatever you want to call it, for some reason that sits well with me. If we go and look at, and Alex, am I able to share my chart real quick? Can you give me that that permission?
There you go.
I just want to bring this into context for the Bitcoin chart and kind of where we're at with everything. Now I've got it. So Google Chrome, I'm on BTC USD. I've got my magical fib charts method. If you're listening, yes, I know they are backwards. You are, I know you've definitely let me know that, but I have my ways. So there's two kind of magic numbers here. The 0.5 fib line is where we've been hovering around. We've also got the 200 moving average, which is that blue line that Bitcoin has also been hovering around since that magical flash crash that happened about a week ago. So we're seeing what is currently a bull hammer forming. Clearly, the daily is still very early, but if Bitcoin can maintain above that 200 moving average, and we can maintain sentiment that is creeping back into neutral, potentially bullish territory. We know that when Bitcoin moves into green territory, price action generally follows. So if we can do that and the 200 moving average stays solid, I think we look a lot better than we actually, than what everyone believes we do. Because again, even though trading volume is down, Twitter volume is up and sentiment is recovering. So volume can come in. And then if we look at Ethereum, our trading volume is higher. Our sentiment is not terrible. That does look like it might want to recover in terms of just a general formation. That's a descending wedge pattern. So I'm not ready to count crypto out, but I'm certainly not going long. I'm certainly not going short. And I'm slowly laddering some dry powder buys that in which I took some profits weeks ago, just in case we saw some short-term volatility here. So I'm slowly laddering back in. I'm not ready to, fight the Fed. I'm not ready to say that the sky is falling, but I do think that we are in an extremely volatile period. And I did say on CoinDesk 3 days ago, expect a lot of volatility over the next 2 weeks. And I think if you like to trade that, now is your chance. If you are a casual investor, buy at support areas and do not get crazy with the types of purchases you make, because you may have another dip opportunity presented to you later. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. It's nothing direct. It's very much wait and see, but I'm not ready to say that the punch bowl is gone. The bull market's dead. I think that this is definitely a period of uncertainty, and we just have to figure a few things out moving forward as the year closes.
Yeah, and that's some sound advice right there, folks. We always say, don't forget to pay attention to the typical markets, the traditional markets, because you want to look at those cyclical events and those downturns that happen, such as inflation, such as in the housing markets, new home sales, job numbers. So,
SPY's back up to previous highs, and it doesn't look terribly bearish right now, even with numbers. So
I'm not feeling that this is a pain point right here in the market cycle. I'm very bullish in the upcoming weeks, particularly going into Christmas, which tends to be a low volume trading week. But I think there's going to be a little difference in it this year. I just have that feeling. I believe the market participant increase that's gone in over the last 6 to 8 months, we're going to actually have people back behind their computers, much like the beginning of COVID situation. So I'm looking forward to that and see what opportunities present. The one of the things I want to go to is next, the Art Basel week in Miami.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
one thing really quickly, Alex. I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention this, but you reminded me perfectly of the previous Bitcoin cycle. And I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think everybody on the call is going to love this. Now, this is very small. This is a year ago. Look at the day that Bitcoin nearly was dead in our eyes And then when it turned around into literally double by mid-January. That day is tomorrow, 1 year ago. The sky was falling 1 year ago today. And 1 year ago tomorrow, it was not falling. So I'm sorry to get boisterous and excited there, but you reminded me of a very important kind of phenomenon. And literally 1 year ago, we had nearly the same formation drop in the middle of December, or drop in November, rise up, get killed in December, only to have a glorious Q1. So I'll leave it at that.
And Q1 last year was so damn exciting, especially for the folks that spent 3 years in a winter like we did. It took us by storm at the end of the year, and we felt like it was 1999 again. Really enjoyed it. So hopefully we get the same cyclical action we do this year. I am feeling bullish. I think Nick, you can tell by the excitement in his tone that he's feeling excited. So whatever we can do to bring as much information to everybody. All right, Art Basel, Miami, fun, sun, and NFTs.
Yeah, so I think the most interesting part about Art Basel, and we have been to, I think, nearly every conference. We were at the pre-2017, we were at the 2017, we were at the post-2017. I have not felt this kind of energy since like the Bitcoin, I think Miami, like 2017 conference. The entire week was filled. Every place you went, someone was wearing an Ethereum shirt. They were wearing a crypto gear. They had wristbands on from one conference to the next. Every place that you went, whether it was in the art event, a crypto event, the Basel event, it was easily 50-50 crypto normie crowd, or people. When I say normie, I don't want to say that in a bad light. Everyone was curious. Everyone was, I own a little bit of this. Do I want to buy this NFT? They're advertising this. I've heard about that. The questions, the life, the amount of NFTs it slipped into the art scene was fascinating. And I'd been to Art Basel because they've held Bitcoin conferences during Art Basel previously before, and it was always separate. It was always the crypto kids got their, they went to the clubs and they did their, their quote unquote dirty things, and everyone else lived their lives. And now it is very much like crypto was the mainstream in Art Basel. Like, I don't think you could have thrown an Art Basel event without courting the crypto crowd, because I don't think you would have got the attendance that you would have wanted. And I don't say that lightly. I was DJs with NFT wallets thicker than mine. And these guys travel the world professionally. Artists that are launching NFT projects with real life exhibits. People that are trying to figure out how to marry DeFi and NFTs beyond kind of the wolf game stuff. How do we build a play to earn or play to activate kind of economy within art, within NFTs? How do we inspire younger gamers? How do we inspire younger creators? There were even like high schoolers and college kids like visiting and talking with teams, and people just want to learn how to get into this industry. And whether or not you think that NFTs are a bubble, or DeFi or whatever it is, it might be, it could be. But I think the amount of interest that is happening long term is the 1991 to 01 kind of era. Everyone has a million ideas. Everyone wants to participate, but it's probably going to take another 5 to 10 years for us to really figure out where the value is and who's going to last long term. So that's probably not the answer that everybody wants. But when you know that there's not a single hotel room, not a single villa, not a single rental car, not a single restaurant, not a single club, not a single reservation available for a week straight because everybody around the world is there for art and crypto, that's kind of a signal that you're kind of within the next epoch. And I think you also saw that, we saw that in Puerto Rico as well. Clearly not as many people are in Puerto Rico as Miami, but every party we went to, every reservation we wanted, it was slammed. You couldn't get anything.
Oh, I hosted, I think over the course of the week, I hosted gatherings with rappers, musicians, artists, a couple folks from CNBC, all talking
some big NFT creators too, that I know you can't name, but
I can't name them, but some of the big NFT creators in the system, and sat down and had some really interesting conversations. But I think you're right. I think it's market maturity that really still hasn't taken hold yet, and we'll figure it out. We're going through that sorting period. It's almost like 2012 in Bitcoin when people were still figuring, what is this and how do I use it? I do want to, before we go to Puerto Rico Blockchain Week, I do want to share something with everyone. And this is what happened after Miami Art Basel. So Bloomberg did an article on NFTs, and on the front page in the first mention was Platypunks. Now, if you don't know, if you've been hiding under a rock, then I will tell you the creator and founder of Platypunks is our own Nick Mancini here at Trade the Chain. So he didn't have anything to do with this. When he noticed this in Bloomberg and got hit out by fans of his, this was an awesome shock. So congratulations, Nick, on getting featured in Bloomberg for NFTs from Art Basel.
Yeah, thank you very much. And a lot of people were like, how did you pull this off? How much money did you pay Bloomberg? And I legitimately have never talked to any of those reporters. All of my Bloomberg connections are separate. It was completely random. They did not even text me, message me, quote me, anything. That was purely our community, which is the most beautiful part about it, is they found our community because they were a bunch of nutcases who love Platypunks, and I'm one of those nutcases too. And for that, I'm very grateful to our awesome community and the Trade the Chain community, because I know we have a bunch of Platties in there as well. And you guys are super supportive as well. So thank you.
All right, so we have a question from James, who's 5 minutes late. That's okay. We don't penalize for that. Do you think it's likely that as institutional holders lock in profit for this year, we'll see continued pressure down until Jan 1 when 2020 outlays start to flow in and the price rockets up? If so, is this a thing that would likely repeat every year due to the nature of new participants? I'd like to answer this, being on the institutional side of crypto for so long. Yeah, we're going to see profit as well as, de-risking portfolios as we go into the end of the year. But I think it's going to have a less of an impact this year than last or the year before, because of how many new retail participants came in. So you have companies like StormX or Voyager, even FTX, and even Trade the Chain, who've entered into these marketing partnerships on the retail side that are drawing more questions in from people who are just getting in. So what happens after some profit taking on the institutional side occurs, we go through the portfolio rebalancing period. And the portfolio rebalancing period, in layman's terms, is when you start cutting down your exposure and going risk off and starting off on a fresh cycle of diversification within that portfolio that a manager is managing. So there'll be some sell-offs that occur during that, as well as some buys. But that's a great question. It does happen every year on a more prolific event than it does quarterly, because it does happen quarterly as well. So Nick, your take.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think, if we look at previous cycles, and I don't want to say this in a mean fashion, but this is generally just how it happens. And it's just a good way to kind of think about things, because none of us sit and think about the markets as much as someone with billions of dollars in the markets thinks about the market. So if you're asking that question now, the de-risking has already begun. The institutional crowd has already thought of what you are thinking now. They've done it, and you are now realizing it. And now you are trying to process your decision making. And as are we all. We never know when it's happening, because no one ever calls Alex and I and says, hey, I'm taking $1 billion out of the market. I wish we did. We ask them to. They don't. Maybe one day they will. So in terms of that, I think if you go and look at the daily, if you go and look at the 3-day, we're nearing oversold. Institutional will not sell at an oversold point unless the sky is quite literally falling and liquidity is being pulled out of the market quicker than anyone can realize. So I think you're right. I think it's already happened. I think we're already near the end of it. And I think that whenever the purchases en masse that we start to realize that are going to lift price, out of the quote unquote bearish trend or correction trend, that is going to happen sooner rather than later, and more than likely. So that's just a good rule of thumb. If you're realizing something that you think institutional is doing, they've probably already been doing it for at least a week. So you just have to think that way until you have the time and the capacity to think like a $1 billion market maker.
Agreed. And it's interesting because behind you, over your right shoulder on CNBC, I was I saw Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, speaking
Yep.
earlier. And I had dinner with the head of his family office last night. And they've been going through their rebalance, their portfolio rebalancing. If anybody doesn't know, Mr. Wonderful got into crypto pretty decent this year, and he announced it publicly after not wanting to touch it for so long. But they're going through it. Scaramucci's going through it. I spoke to a couple of portfolio managers down here on the island who manage billion-dollar plus funds. Everybody's doing it. So I think, one of the things you have to remember, besides the market volatility on its own from the retail crowd, is a lot of this also gets baked in to that volatility. So it's not like you should be bracing for some big wind gusts to come during this de-risk period. All right. Nick, let's head on over to, well, what else? Oh, how did you find PR? How did you find Puerto Rico Blockchain Week? You came down, you joined us. Tell us about some of the events and things that you did.
Yeah, so the first night, well, the first night there was like a few events. I think we were hopping around to a few, so that was good. And when there's a few events, and when each of them are more or less filled up, to capacity, that's a good sign. Wherever we went, I actually, when I was in the airport too, like everyone that was on my flights and other flights were wearing like Ethereum shirts and random crypto shirts too. And the Puerto Rico airport's not generally like super slammed, so that was awesome. But then when Ryan and I were popping around, we were seeing, everybody had their crypto gear on. When I was at Metaverso, people were even wearing like we were laughing at this, but they were wearing their hotel gear. Like, I think people wanted to create a social status on the island of like, I'm at the Vanderbilt or I'm at the La Concha. They wanted to show off about, how well they're doing. What projects they're building, where they're staying. People are talking about building houses on the island and stuff like that. So the island is thriving. And I think you can speak to this more of just talent and success. People that have been around the block that have accomplished certain things in the market. There's a massive treasure chest of them on the island. And if you really want to go and get expertise and understand, what happened in 2016 or how to build a business out of nothing, or how to deal with, a market crash or a failed business, all of that's on the island en masse. So to sit there and talk to people, it was a different crowd. So Miami Art Basel is, how do I get into it, or can I flaunt my wealth? There was very much that dichotomy. And Puerto Rico, everyone is more or less equal. No one, everybody's kind of already got a sort of success point. So everyone's very much willing to discuss that, how they can move farther, how can we make a deal, how can we connect each other. So Puerto Rico is very much like even level playing field, whereas Art Basel was like, how do I continue to climb the ladder? So it's good to see that happening in 2 consecutive weeks, because you get that. I mean, that's literally everything from crypto is I have 1 ETH. How do I build more ETH? Or I have all the ETH in the world. How do I help others? So between the 2 weeks, like that, all of that was there. And you don't see that much, usually when you go to a conference, it's just like, let's make a deal. Let's get the F off the island. And for 10, 14 days, it was very much, it was friendly. It was welcoming. It was open. And there was so much deal flow, so many ideas flowing around. I was sitting at tables with guys making handshake $1 million deals for protocols, for DEXs, for things like that. So I'm privy to some $500 million funds that are going to be started up for some L1s. I can't say anything, obviously, but like, this is the deal flow that's happening over the past week, even when 20% drops were happening. So if people are ready to start putting more money where their mouth is in Q1, I think that's a good signal.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely a vibrant week. Our resident crypto multi-billionaire Brock Pierce threw some fantastic things. I went to his house and there was a bunch of NFT stuff.
The monastery.
As well as heading out Dorado for the Miss World pool and golf event, which was fantastic. But it was great to see all the people, and I don't want to throw everybody's name around, but it was just great to see all the OGs and kind of catch up and talk and see what's happening. A lot of young developers as well getting into the mix. I mean, if you want to know the interesting guys, a lot of people, you go to one of these parties or networking events and everybody crowds around the same place at the bar. I like to go to the edges, the people who are a little shy, and find out what their story is, because you half the time you got some superstar full stack dev who's building this really great project in crypto, and you're like, oh, well, all those people are hogging the bar. I'm gonna find the next opportunity.
one of the founders of like one of the biggest tools to like self-develop applications, like asked us for a cigarette and was just like casual until he was like, yeah, I founded this project. And we're like, whoa, we're not even developers and we know exactly what you do. Like that's like, it's crazy. And I think you're forgetting the exact term for your strategy, Alex. It's the smoke break index. And it was that level 100 in Puerto Rico for sure. So
that's right, the smoke break index. All right, we got a question in the chat. One asking for Nick's hat. I don't know if Nick's going to part with his hat, but actually, we will have the hats that Nick and I are wearing currently. We change them up often. This is the Trade the Chain Racing Team hat. And I should say that our driver Brandon Brown was down here for the week and enjoyed his first series of crypto events. He was very he was a good listener. He's absorbing a lot in, and so I got to respect that from the young man. Alex, can you please comment on how exchange listing works? Literally 3 minutes after getting the Discord notification, that coin is already pumping. Would like to hear your thoughts on it. That's a great question. So part of, and I'm assuming you got a SIGDEV alert in the Discord and started monitoring it. And if that's the case, that's actually one of our tools that we have in our tool belt here at Trade the Chain. A SIGDEV alert comes from our AI scraping the web. So we have AI that scrapes the web and does it globally. So it'll actually contextually scrape something and say China or Denmark, translate it and then read it into into a listing. If it's somebody, listen, I remember it was D&T came out and we beat the KuCoin announcement by 28 minutes. That was our big one. So we data scraped a saved file in a marketing company that was doing the official announcement. I'll give it up. We're sneaky over here. I'll tell you the ROI on that was up over 300% the minute it did hit the listing on KuCoin. And since the members had such a big time advance on that, there was like another 32% of alpha that was generated just from TTC members. I remember we had a lot of winners. But that's how it works. So we scrape, we triangulate it, confirm it, and we throw it up in the listing. It's a real-time trade. So basically what you need to do is, not all these are on exchanges that you may know and use. So you go to the old trusty Uniswap or another decentralized exchange that you have, always keep some dry powder in. And this is where it really doesn't matter what the asset is that's getting listed, XYZ coin, it could be sleeping bag coin, who cares? It's called the Coinbase effect. And we have it actually pinned, I believe, Nick, in one of the channels, which is the research report put out by our partners over at the TIE and us, which explain what the Coinbase effect is. And the phrase Coinbase effect goes back when there was less exchanges, there was less coins, and every time Coinbase would list something, it would have a dramatic short-term increase in price action. And then also followed by a dramatic decrease in price action. So it's a short-term trade to get to capitalize on the hype and buzz of a new listing, while new participants of an exchange that couldn't get the coin before flood into it. You generate alpha, and then you back out of it. And that's what it's for. I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, jump into the chat and tell me that I just ranted on something else that you weren't asking.
And I will, if one add in I can, Coinbase and Binance are probably the biggest, like, let's say boosts for price when they happen. It's nothing's ever guaranteed, but generally Coinbase and Binance have the big kind of pump effect. KuCoin sometimes, be careful. Yeah, be careful with KuCoin and Kraken and a few others. Doesn't mean it's, automatically a bad thing. But, I'd say Binance and Coinbase are going to have the largest likely price effects.
Now, also, I want to make note. We also monitor the words that are used to list a coin by any particular exchange, as well as their rhythm of doing it. And they change it up every once in a while and try to catch us off guard. So we're constantly monitoring the verbiage because we're always scraping for particular phrases on a particular exchange. One thing Coinbase did start doing this past year was they started listing it on the Coinbase Pro, and then subsequently listing it a couple days later on regular Coinbase. If you're not a member of Coinbase Pro, you have to trade it on Coinbase. But what it started doing was generating two pumps. So the Coinbase Pro initial announcement would send it up, and then it would have its sell-off period. And then 2-3 days later, they would announce it on Coinbase, and it would pump up again. So sometimes you get a second chance at the Apple, or whatever they say in that phrase. All right, so let's get on to Scent Galaxy now. I know a lot of anticipation has been is being had from a bunch of people, and so we wanted to have this AMA because obviously we've all been really busy with conferences and our peers, networking with our peers over the last 2 weeks, while simultaneously working with our dev team to get Scent Galaxy beta out. So what we have was we were going for last Monday to start with the beta testers, and we actually had to from our own workload and making sure it comes out right, push this out to this following Monday. But that's okay. Nothing bad has happened. It's just us being overworked and everybody trying to do everything at once. We did pick over the weekend, last weekend, our first batch of beta testers. There's going to be a couple waves, and we didn't reach out to them because in a reach out email it has the beta link for them to go right into the app, and we didn't want that to happen as we were sliding it off. So that being said, everybody's back at home right now. Nobody's traveling. We are going to send our welcome email out to the first phase of beta testers next week. If you are not contacted, doesn't mean you're out. We're going to have another shot in our follow-up phase about a week or so after that as well. And then once we get through the month of December, our planned rollout is after everybody gets done with their hangover from New Year's Eve, is when it's going out available to the public. It's currently Google Play for sure. We're still getting approved by the App Store and Apple, but do not worry. If you have an Apple phone and you are chosen as a beta tester, we're giving you a link into the internal dev portion of Apple. So you'll be able to utilize it seamlessly with no problem, and then be done with it. But that's our big thing with Scent.
I think we're gonna have a few like mini games and competitions throughout the next several weeks as well for additional chances to earn the whitelist if you weren't on the original acceptance list. So we want to make sure that we're giving opportunities to everyone through some random chance as well, not just who's the most active or who submitted their their application first and yada yada yada. So
yeah, we'll have plenty of contests for crypto prizes during this period for everybody, whether they got selected or not. And before anybody yells at us on Twitter for the delay, the one thing we don't want is this is a multi-blockchain wallet. It's non-custodial. It is having people's assets on it. We need to make sure everything works before giving it out and letting the public use it. So that's it. We just don't want to be irresponsible. And our dev team has been working around the clock. So thank you for your patience. And we'll make sure that as quick as we can, this is out to everybody. Anything else? Folks, any questions, drop it in the chat or Q&A, let us know. And if not, go into Discord and you can always hit us up there. We're there 24/7. So definitely it. Nick, you good?
I think I'm good. I just definitely, want to end it with, definitely, although, I got excited, that a year ago tomorrow is when things recovered. We have seen some weekend recovery stuff, but I do want to caveat that leading up to Christmas, we may see some more continued volatility. I think the interesting part about this one was that it's the first kind of Christmas without COVID really hanging over our heads. So you're going to see people traveling, might see more gift buying. I think consumer spending will likely be higher in December. If spending is higher, it's probably due to people pulling some gains of accrued wealth that they've had over the past year of maybe less spending. So just be aware that we may see a bit of a choppier market cycle this year, just due to the holiday effect. But Alex and I are still expecting a bullish continuation, at least of some degree into Q1. So bear with us, bear with the markets. We don't think the sky is falling, but it may be better to not monitor things every hour on the hour, and check back daily on some key metrics that we set. So on the daily, on the daily charts, definitely the 200 moving average. Or the center of the trading range and of the peak to trough. So back when I think May, April, all the way to what we saw in October, November. So just watch those two levels. So 200 moving average and the center of the trading range from peak to trough. Those are going to be very marquee ranges for moving forward. And we'll obviously continue to update you guys in the Trade the Chain Discord community. So check back that, tag me if you have questions. And we're going to have a lot of updates coming soon for you guys.
Yeah, pay attention to the traditional stuff going on. We still have supply chain issues, and we're currently being overburdened with consumer demand over products available just in about every single category. So inflation is kind of working its mix within that. But again, that's solvable stuff. So it's not doom and gloom whatsoever. Also remember that this time last year when volume did start going up, we were dead in the heat of COVID and lockdown. So to Nick's point, the volatility is going to cause a little ruckus because people can now in a lot of places move away from their desks. So there's going to be some lower volume numbers. There's going to be some de-risking and rebalancing of portfolios and more consumer spending. The thing is that the more consumer spending creates a higher consumer confidence index level. And as long as we keep those traditional equity markets up, expect the same to be with crypto. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us. Tag us and hit us in Discord if you have any questions, or DM myself or Nick, and look for his research reports posted quite often in the community. Thanks everybody.